Hello, my name is Pei-fen, S.P.F.Dale. I'm an adjunct lecturer at Tokai University, Hosei University, and Sophia University here in Tokyo. My fields of specialization are sociology, gender and sexuality studies, and Japanese studies. My research at present focuses mostly on queer identities in Japan. So the term X-gender, it's one that I've found really differs depending on the individual. Each individual has their own interpretation of the term, and it means something different for each individual as well. Generally speaking, one can say that it refers to identifying as neither female nor male, or it could also refer to objecting to the gender binary in society. So the term X-gender, it originated in the late 1990s in the queer communities in Kansai. So it had a rather limited usage at first. It wasn't that well known. Somehow it made its way to the internet. And it was really through the internet that the term X-gender became more well known and that it spread as well. The meaning of the term and the connotations of the term, as well as the freedom to define the term, is something that has really changed a lot in the 5 years since I started my research. When I first started my research, it was a term that wasn't that well known, and it was fairly open to definition. However, this has changed a lot, and since right now, presently in 2015, the term is it's one that you'll find in publications about LGBT issues. It's difficult to write about LGBT issues in Japan without talking about what it means to be X-gender, or including the term X-gender as well. What I think is, unique to Japan, in a sense, is the use of this word X-gender to describe this identity. My research looks at this word X-gender, and I do not try to define X-gender, but rather I examine how the individuals who use this term use it to define themselves. I look at how people who identify as X-gender define the term X-gender, and what it means for them to live as X-gender in a society that is still very much bound up, that is still very much defined by this gender binary. What does it mean to live as X-gender in a society where you are obliged to be either female or male? What I mean by this is, for example, on official documentation, you're only given the choice of being female or male. In most social institutions, there only exists the choices of being female or male. In most cases, this is not even given as a choice. It's something that is assigned to you. For example, going to school, going to an all-male school, all-female school, going to a mixed school, but having to wear a male or female uniform. Something simple, just going to the toilet, male or female. This gender binary is something that we encounter everywhere we go as well. And what does it mean for an individual who identifies as X-gender? How does their identity play into the choices that they make in everyday life? Right, so for my research, I conducted fieldwork. I conducted interviews with 25 individuals who identify as X-gender. As I mentioned, the term X-gender is not one that I attempt to define. And when I was looking for participants to participate in my research project, the only qualification that I had was that individual should self-identify as X-gender. In other words, I don't look at a person and say, "You're X-gender, I want to talk to you." But that person says, "I'm X-gender and I would like to talk to you." That's how I found people to participate in my research project. I recruited people online, and I conducted research in various parts of Japan. Interviews were conducted in Tokyo, in the Kansai region, as well as Nagoya and Fukuoka. I managed to speak with individuals from a variety of age groups. A lot of the people I spoke with were in their 20s, some in their 30s, and the older individuals were in their 40s. I recruited people online, and this also means that my research group is biased in a sense, because only people who use the internet on a fairly frequent basis would know about my research and would offer to participate in my research project. As for interviews, each interview lasted between 1 and 4 hours. It really depended on how much each individual wanted to speak for. We spoke about a variety of issues, really. As I mentioned, the aim of my research was really to find out about what being X-gender means for this individual and how they understand the term. So questions about, how they define X-gender, how they came to identify as X-gender and how they found out about the term. Questions about sexuality, about school, work, family, as well as gender performance and language use as well. As some viewers might be aware, in Japan, first-person pronouns are gendered. And even when you speak, you're sort of putting forth a gender performance in a way as well. Choosing to use a masculine first-person pronoun or a feminine one, or also what may be conceived as a gender-neutral pronoun. So my interviews really sought to capture all these different aspects of everyday life that not just gender individuals experience, but all of us experience as well. Right, so I will just focus on two of the main results that I found from my research. The first would be the role of the internet in discovering your own identity, in a sense. The term X-gender, it's a recent one that I think, you could say that it was created in the late 1990s in Japan. And it really sort of spread through the internet. Most of the people that I spoke to as well found out about the term through the internet, found out about it by doing a search about gender identity, for example, or using specific words such as chusei, androgynous, and so on. So for a lot of people, this process of discovery, of finding out who you are, it was something that did not just occur in community groups, did not really necessarily occur through meeting with other people, but also something that occurred individually, but not really individually because you're online. So in this online space. So I think the internet has been very influential in how the term X-gender has come to develop and also how people come to understand themselves. The second major finding that I had was just how the concept of X-gender is really changing. When I first started my research in 2010, the word X-gender, it was known to an extent. It was, there were some people who identified as X-gender and maintained blogs about being X-gender. There were some online groups, for example, on the social networking service Mixi, for people who identify as X-gender. But at the time that I started my research, there was no Wikipedia page specifically for X-gender. However, in 2013, there was a Wikipedia page for X-gender that was created. So what is happening is that there's an increasing awareness of what it means to be X-gender. The term itself is becoming more well-known. You will find it increasingly, you will find the term in more and more publications about queer identities or LGBT issues in Japan. You will also find the term that is quite prominent in community spaces for queer or LGBT groups in Japan. So it's becoming more well-known. But it's not just becoming more well-known, but it's also becoming more defined in a way. So when I first started my research, it was possible for individuals to define the term in a way that felt comfortable for themselves, because the term was not that defined yet. It wasn't that well-known. There was no Wikipedia page. There was a general understanding of what it meant to be X-gender, but no, dictionary definition. Now, though, with the Wikipedia page, the term is also more well-known. It's difficult for people to freely interpret the term X-gender in the way that they used to. Some of the people that I spoke to, when I first started my research, no longer identify as X-gender. This is not because how they feel or how they experience themselves has changed, but rather because they feel that the term X-gender has changed. They can't use it to describe themselves anymore because it doesn't describe them. So this is really what I look at through my research. Not just how individuals feel, but also this term X-gender and how this term has changed as well. So if you are interested in my research, I have a few papers up on my Academia.edu webpage. I believe there's some links available here on the YouTube video. You can also, please feel free to contact me if you'd like to find out more about my research. I finished my PhD dissertation last year, and I am willing to send it to anyone who is interested. In addition, there are also, if you're interested in X-gender or in queer issues in Japan, I've also included a list of books that you might find useful. There are not many publications, or there's not much research done about X-gender in English and nor in Japanese at the moment. But I've included a list of some books and papers in Japanese as well as in English, mostly in Japanese, that you might find useful. Once again, if you are curious about the topic or if you'd like to find out more, please do not hesitate to contact me. I'm more than willing to answer any queries that you might have.